Good evening. My name is John Milburn, and this is Laws 13010, Evidence and Proof. This is Week 5, Term 3, 2018. Thank you very much for attending. We have a number of people. A special event tonight. We're going to do a mock cross-examination or examination and cross-examination. We have 5 people that have nominated to act as prosecution and 2 people volunteering to act as defence. Once we finish the prosecution, if you'd also like to act as defence, then please let me know before we start and we can add you to the list. So the statement is that we're going to deal with tonight. It's in Q&A. If you're looking at this as a recorded session, please call up the statement now, have a look at it, and pause the video and think about the strategy that you would adopt if you were prosecution or defence. Now, the statement is Morris Albert Jones, who is the complainant in proceedings. He's the victim of some alleged GBH. So the representatives for prosecution, Anthony, Rob, Marcus, Mary, Tim. If you could ask up to 5 questions. When you finish, just say next, and just remember your order. And after Tim, it'll go back to you, Anthony, if we're still going. And for defence, well, pretty easy, Michael Fuller and Angela Lawson, and any of the prosecution who may wish to join and have a go at defence as well, or anybody else that's joined us this evening, you're welcome to do so. So are we ready to start? Do you have the statement in front of you? All right. We won't make this too long, but it may go 20 minutes. I'm not quite sure. I haven't done this exercise other than the warm-up exercise that we did previously. So we'll start with you, Anthony, and let's set the scene. The scene is we're in the district court. The jury has now been impanelled. The judge is at the bench. We have defence and prosecution at the bar table. Mr. Jones is just being sworn in now. He's sworn in. He takes a seat. The judge says to Mr. Jones, you're now going to hear from various prosecutors in the examination in chief, and then you will hear from defence counsel who will ask you questions in cross-examination. The judge then turns to Anthony and says, yes, Mr. Apps, your witness.
Thank you, Your Honour. Hello, Mr. Jones. I'll just ask you a few questions. So just to start, can you please state your full name and date of birth to the court?
Morris Albert Jones, 1 November 1932.
All right, thank you. Are you currently employed, Mr. Jones?
No, I'm retired.
Okay. What was your previous employment?
I worked as a captain in the Australian Army, and before that I had a number of jobs. I was for a while a technician in a company that's quite established, an old fashion company. Beyond that, before that, I used to run a paper run, of all things, as a teenager. Sometimes I actually used to do some ball boy work at Ballymore. I was pretty fond of rugby, and that's one of the things that caught my eye, that opportunity to be a ball boy and to, get in there with the players. And you can stop me anytime you like, Anthony, and say, all right, let's move on.
Okay.
I didn't think you'd let me go that far. And also, sorry, I forgot to mention, we do have objections in this exercise. My apologies. The judge turns to Mr. Apps and says, Mr. Apps, you better control your witness. Thank you. Your witness, Mr. Apps. Mr. Apps.
Okay, so I've just got a question then. So once you're satisfied with the answer, you can just cut them off?
You can, and you need to. So when you're the prosecutor, you need to control your witness and keep them focused. Don't let them ramble too much. So thank you for asking that. And,
okay, the other question I've got then is it appropriate before you start your questions to brief them and remind them to say, look, all we want is the facts based on your senses?
Yes.
And we don't need any opinion, any personal opinion?
You certainly wouldn't do that in the trial, but you would do that as part of the brief but as part of your briefing with the witness and your proofing of the witness before the event. So in the proofing stage, you would be going through all of that. So you're at a distinct disadvantage in this exercise in that you haven't been through the proofing exercise. So you need to be potentially more proactive. But it's amazing the number of times that witnesses just, I don't know, they get caught up in the moment and they just go off script. So it's very common for this sort of thing to happen. I'll exaggerate it probably. All right. So maybe one more question, Anthony, and then we might move on to Rob, if that's all right.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Mr. Jones. The next question, can you recall the events of 25th of April 2018?
Yes, I can.
All right. Thank you. All right. Your witness, Rob.
Thank you, Mick. Where were you on the morning of 25th of April 2018 around 12 o'clock p.m., Mr. Jones?
12 o'clock p.m. I was probably at the pub.
Can you tell us what happened on your way home from there?
Well, I didn't go home after I was at the pub.
Where did you go after you left the pub, Mr. Jones?
I went to a takeaway to get some lunch.
Okay. And on your way home from the takeaway, can you please explain to the court what happened?
I was hit. My vehicle was hit and I was literally hit. Both things happened.
Okay. And where was that, Mr. Jones?
And I'll just stop you there, Rob. You need to build this a lot more than you're doing. So this is a training exercise. You've jumped far too quickly into the guts of it. You've got to build it. So that means setting the scene a little bit more. But otherwise it was good. So because we've got a few prosecutors, I'm going to move on.
Yeah, perfect.
But I like your direct questioning and your style. So don't be put off by my comments. They're designed to help. No, thank you, Rob. All right, so Marcus.
Yes, so John, where do you want me to take off from?
Well, you can just come in at any stage, even if we repeat things, that's fine.
Okay, I'll just take it from where you said the accident, you've been hit.
Okay, no, that's good. Thank you.
Okay, so you said you've been hit and you've been hit. So in relation to being hit in the motor vehicle, can you briefly explain what happened?
Yes, I was driving. So I'd picked up my takeaway. I went round the block, effectively doing a kind of U-turn into another street. And as I'm heading towards my home, I'm going down this street, down Smith Street, pretty narrow, and basically I just got hit by this car. The defendant came out and smacked into my car.
Okay, and what happened then?
Well, I tried to avoid the collision, couldn't, went down the road and parked my vehicle.
Okay, and how far down the road did you park your vehicle?
About 20 metres.
And how long, Mr. Jones, would that have taken you to park your car and in your statement, you've alighted from your vehicle?
Yeah, it didn't take very long, probably only 30 seconds by the time after I was hit in the collision before I parked the vehicle.
Okay, could it have been longer than 30 seconds?
It could have been, yep.
Okay, and after you've got out of your vehicle, can you explain to the court what happened?
Well, I got out of the vehicle and all of a sudden I saw the defendant running towards me. So we better move on, Marcus.
Yeah, okay. As in pass.
Yes.
Next, okay. Over the next prosecutor.
Thank you. Mary. Can't hear you, Mary. I've just unmuted you there, Mary. We can hear you now.
I'd like to take it back a little bit first. Mr. Jones, you've stated that you were born on the 4th of November 1932. So how old does that make you?
I don't know, about 70 something, 70, 80.
86.
86.
Yeah.
My memory's not as good after I was smacked in the head.
And in order to maintain your driver's license at 86 years of age, is it correct that you go and have a medical certificate done?
I do, every year, yes.
And when was the last medical certificate issued?
On the 1st of July last year,
Okay,
or this year. 1st of July this year.
Okay, so that's, okay, the 1st of July. Okay,
No,
so
hang on, I'm mistaken. Would have been the 1st of July 2017.
Well, it's supposed to be an annual medical.
It is.
So did you have one on the 1st, around about July 1st of this year?
No.
Are we allowed to object?
Yes, you should be.
Leading questions, Your Honour?
Yep. It is leading. And also, Mary, there are more questions that would be the sort of questions you might expect from Defence Counsel.
Yeah, no, what I was
prosecution.
going to get at is
Yep.
if you'd have a medical checkup, then his eyes and everything would be suitable. So where it
Yes.
says down further that he was
Yep.
blind as a bat, I was trying to get at where you've had your medical examination.
Yep.
So,
No, I like your thinking.
but
But bear in mind, of course, the accident occurred on the 25th of April 2018, and the medical check was on the 1st of July 2017.
Okay.
All right.
So what I was trying to establish was that he's medically fit to drive.
Yes.
Blind as a bat, even though he's 86.
No, I like your thinking. I like the approach. No, that's good. I know it's quick with prosecution because we've got a few people. So, Mary, thank you for that. We might move on to Tim, if that's all right. It'll come back to you, I suspect, Mary. Tim.
What speed were you travelling at prior to impact?
Approximately 30 kilometres per hour.
Okay. And the weather conditions?
Drizzly. There's a bit of rain.
And in terms of traffic conditions, were there many other vehicles on the road?
Oh, it's a busy street, Smith Street. It's only a narrow little street, but it's always busy. A lot of cars around. There were a lot of cars around that day as well.
Did you have any distractions inside or outside the vehicle?
Well, I not until the silly lady on the left-hand side opened a door.
Objection.
Yes, objection is.
Objection to the description of the lady as being silly.
Yep, although.
Calls for an opinion.
Yep, no, that's true. But Michael, if I was defence counsel, I would not have stopped the flow then. Sometimes, and part of that, I'm glad you objected, because part of the art, I think, is even though there may be something objectionable, if you're getting something that's worthwhile for defence, let it go, I think. But the judge would say, yes, try and keep your opinions to yourself, Mr. Jones, about the other people. Well, what I meant, Your Honour, was that the woman opened the car door without any prior notice, and it just totally distracted me. So these aren't good. These are not good answers for you, Tim, are they?
No. Did that cause you to alter the position of your vehicle on the road?
Well, I wasn't going to hit her door, was I? Especially when there was a baby there as well. So, yeah, I had to veer a bit.
Did that have any impact in regard to the resulting accident?
Not if that defendant had been looking out and doing the proper thing in making sure.
Objection, opinion.
Opinion? Yep. No, that's fair enough. Good on you, Mayor. I'm not sure if I've heard prosecutors objecting to fellow prosecutors, but it's good. No, that's fine. So thank you, Mary.
Oh, he's a prosecutor. Oh, sorry.
No, we're still in prosecution mode.
Okay, sorry.
Right. No, that's good. But it's fine. It's good. Tim, we might move back to Anthony. I know it's quick, but I suspect it will come back to you again. Thank you. Anthony.
Okay, I'm going to back up a little bit here. Mr. Jones, when you said you drove down Smith Street.
Yes.
Is Smith Street a two-way street?
Two-way street, yes, it is.
Okay. Was there any signage along that street?
Yes, there is. There's 2-hour parking is one of the signs that I can remember. There's signs for advertising for various shops on both sides of the road.
Might be more specific then, Mr. Jones. Was there any no parking signs along that street?
Not that I can recall, but there is like a loading zone at the end of the street. I can recall that.
When you say at the end of the street, how far from the intersection was the loading zone signs?
I don't remember any loading zone signs. Oh, sorry, loading zones. Yes. Do you mean the end of the street, the start of the street, or the end? At the end?
In relation to where you were struck.
Yes.
Could you see the loading zone signs from where you were struck?
After I was struck, I looked for somewhere to pull over and I saw the loading zones. I had to cross the road onto the wrong side of the road, but that's what I did, and parked in the loading zone, which was not far from the T intersection at the end of the street.
Okay, I might hand over there.
Thank you. Rob.
Yeah, hi, sorry guys, we've got a little bit of a storm going on here and my dogs are going absolutely nuts in the background, so I'll try and be as brief as I can.
Sure.
I'm also just going to back up a little bit. Mr. Jones, could you please identify the vehicle you drive by make, model and year, please?
Yes, Land Cruiser. It's an 80 series. It's a reliable 1979 model. I've had it since new. It's a diesel. It goes like the clappers.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Can you explain specifically how the collision occurred?
I veered to avoid the lady who opened her door on the left-hand side. I may have gone slightly over to the right-hand side of the road. There was a bit of rain on the windshield, and the next thing I know, bang, out comes the defendant from the right-hand side.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. And can you explain to the court what the person that was that hit you from the right-hand side was wearing at the time?
As far as I could tell from memory, it was a black T-shirt, jeans, and a kind of funny hat.
Okay. Now, I just want to back up a little bit because earlier you said in your statement that you were hit by a car.
Yes.
But you said in the witness statement here that you were hit by a motorcycle.
Oh yeah, it was a motorcycle. That's right. I remember now. It was a motorcycle. You're absolutely right.
Okay. So in that instance, would I make an application to the court?
No, you just got to wear it as the prosecution. You've got to roll with the punches.
And hope the defence doesn't pick up on it.
Well, that's right. You know,
Okay.
and this is exaggerated, but this is what happens. So Good work, Rob. And I like your questioning style. In fact, all of you are doing really well. Very clear, short sentences, for short questions, which is excellent. Marcus.
So, Mr. Jones, you described the defendant running down the street.
Towards me, yes.
Can you describe how he was moving?
Well, he got off his bike and he was running at me pretty quickly and aggressively.
Objection.
Okay.
Objection, yep. Basis?
I don't know how to say it, but he's calling out him aggressive, and that's his opinion. Is that opinion or?
Yeah, it is.
It
is an opinion, but what would typically happen is this: the court would normally allow that on the basis that the alternative is to then go about describing the facial features, the body language, all of which goes up to, you know, the pitch of the voice, and all of that could be best and equally described as aggressive. Does that make sense? And the statement that we're talking about, Morris Jones, I uploaded it into the Q&A section under the special event for tonight. But it is, that's a good objection, Angela. Thank you. Marcus.
So can you describe how he was carrying himself, where his hands were
Yep, he was shouting. He was very loud. He was like puffing himself up. He was, you know, the big man. His arms were waving in an aggressive style, and he had this sort of angry look on his face.
Okay, and how long do you think that he would have been conducting himself like this for?
Well, it was all pretty quick, because by the time he ran towards me until the time he struck me, it wasn't very long at all.
Okay, you say he struck you. Can you describe to the court how he struck you?
Yes, and then we'll switch to Mary after that question. He struck me, he raised his right arm, clenched his fist, and just smacked me. I felt a very sharp sense of pain. Thank you, Mark. Mary?
So where did you feel the pain? Oh, sorry, leading question. Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, that's not a leading question.
So
where did you feel
whereabouts did you feel the pain?
Initially to my shoulder, and then to the back of my head.
Are you aware of who called the ambulance?
No.
Prior to being hit on the right side by this motorbike, do you recall seeing the motorbike at all?
No, it just came straight out of the side street.
Out of a side street. So it was a side street.
Well, it wasn't so much a side street as a rear entrance to one of the stores on the Esplanade, like a car park. It was a rear car park. Came out of that.
Okay. So you're just driving. So you were driving down Smith Street, and the motorbike, you didn't see it coming, but it came out of a side street and hit you on the right. Is that your record?
That's it. Yep.
Okay. Was there? Do you recall anyone else around that at the time that the accident occurred, or
other than the woman that I veered to miss on the left-hand side of the road? No.
And what about when the alleged motorcycle rider ran towards you and knocked you to the ground? Do you recall anyone else being around?
No, I didn't see anyone else at that stage. Thanks, Mary. We might switch to Tim, and that'll be it for prosecution.
Did you know the defendant before the accident?
No, I've never seen him previously.
Okay. And how did you react to the defendant's actions after the vehicle impact?
How did I react?
Yes.
Oh, I wasn't happy. I wasn't happy because he struck me, ruined my beautiful Toyota.
What was your demeanour towards him prior to him pushing you to the ground?
Oh, I was upset with him. I was very upset with him. I can give as good as I can take.
Okay. And what injuries did you sustain, and what damages to your car were occasioned?
I sustained a fractured skull, and there was a lot of damage to my car as well.
Was there dollar amounts involved?
For the car?
The car.
It cost about $6,000 to fix.
Okay, thanks. That's it.
All right. Thank you. So well done. Well done, prosecutors. Give yourself a round of applause. And we had some very worthwhile objections there as well. So we'll now move on to defence. So at the moment, we've got Michael Fuller and Angela Lawson. Did I see in the chat facility we had some late volunteers?
Yeah, I'd love to go third if I can, please, John.
Okay. Was that Simon? Sorry. Oh, Michael. So we've got Michael Dickinson and, sorry, I'll just get my voice recognition going. Michael Dickinson and Simon Gallagher. Simon Gallagher. Okay.
Yeah, no, I'm good to go.
All right. Sorry, my voice recognition's just overloaded at the moment. It's not working. So Just bear with me. The reason I'm doing this is just so I can keep track of where we are. Sorry for the hold up. So we had Michael Dickinson.
Yes.
Oh my goodness, sorry. My system's just overloading here, so bear with me. All right, I'm going to have to ask you.
You'll have to type it in manually.
Yeah, I'll have to ask you to keep track of it. I can't keep track of it for this time, all right? So how many, so if you just, so number one for defence is, I'm just testing if you can get Michael Fuller. Number two is Angela Lawson. Number three is Michael Dickinson. Number four, was that Simon?
Yep.
Okay, yep. Simon Gallagher. Who was number five for defence?
I'll join the defence also.
Please.
That was Anthony, was it?
No,
okay.
Rob.
So Rob, okay. Rob, you're number five. Was there anyone else?
I'd also like to join the defence.
Oh, yeah, right. So Travis Birch, thank you. Any others that I've missed? All right. Thank you very much.
I was going to join defence.
Sorry, was that
John?
Was that
it's
Sarah? Sarah?
I was going to join defence, but you've got 5 now. It might be better to try and keep it even so that the prosecution don't feel too outnumbered.
No, that's fine. We'll just, but we'll just keep it moving. That'll be fine. So that might do it. So Michael, Angela, Michael, Simon, Rob, Travis, Sarah. Let's kick off. So the judge now turns to Michael Fuller and says, yes, Mr. Fuller, your witness.
Thank you, Your Honour. Mr. Jones, let me first start by saying thank you very much for your service in the ADF. And that's where I want to start my cross-examination with you. Can you just tell the court the service that you gave Australia in the Army?
Yes, I was a captain in the Army eventually, and I served in recently found land as part of the war effort. It was, a pretty tragic war, but I served proudly for my country.
Thank you. Now, 25th of April 2018, of course, was NTAC Day, a fairly solemn
Yes.
I understand you attended the dawn service on that day?
Yes, I did.
Objection.
Objection, yep. Who was that, sorry? Anthony, yes. The basis?
Right, that fact hadn't been established, so he's assuming that he's lead. Oh,
No,
actually, he can lead, can't you?
It's an interesting objection. I'm glad you raised it. But when it comes to cross-examination, it's pretty much open slather. So you can ask any sort of question. There might be the issue of relevance. So you might object on the basis of relevance, but you wouldn't object on the basis that it wasn't raised in the examination in chief. That's relevant for re-examination, but not cross-examination. Okay, so that's a good point. Now, I understand, Rob, you're going to pull out, and so we'll go from Simon to Travis to Sarah. Is that correct? All right, thank you. So, yes, back to you, Michael.
So, Mr. Jones, what time did you get up for the dawn service?
At 4 a.m.
And what time did the dawn service finish?
6:30 a.m.
And where did you go after the dawn service?
Mate's place. Went to a mate's place. We've been doing it for many years.
And did you consume any liquor at your mate's place?
I did. Last question. No, we better move on, Michael. Sorry. So, but good question. Angela.
Hey, first of all, good job, because there were some good questions about Anzac Day and drinking alcohol. A couple of questions that I've got. Moving on from here, that Land Cruiser that you spoke about, my dad had one of the same of those. They were good cars. But do you service it yourself? Do you look after it yourself being a technician?
Yes, I do.
Yeah, okay. So did you make sure that all lights and Everything was working on the vehicle at
Absolutely.
the time.
I'm very proud of that car. It is absolutely tip-top condition, always.
All right. We spoke earlier about the fact that you need a medical certificate to drive. Do you have any other conditions attaching to your driver's licence, such as spectacles?
Yes, I do. I need to wear glasses while I drive.
And were you wearing them on the day?
I was.
Okay.
We'll move on, Angela. Sorry. I know it's only quick, but just 5 quick questions, then we'll move on. Michael Dickinson.
Mr. Jones, why were you discharged from the military?
I simply retired.
You retired? Thank you. How many drinks did you have that day?
Or it had, including tea and coffee, glasses
Alcoholic
of water.
drinks?
Sorry?
How many alcoholic drinks?
Oh, no alcoholic drinks.
None for the day?
No.
Okay. And how long after swerving did you collide with the defendant? From when the door flung open, how far had you travelled after the
Probably 10 or 15 metres.
Okay. So when you swerved, you were in a different alignment to where you would have been previously?
Slightly, yes.
So, and it was wet that day, correct?
And it was wet that day, correct.
Yes. And did you notice what that...
Last question.
Oh,
what was that, sorry? No, one more. Yep.
Go for it, Cam.
What was that, sorry?
What was the person that was at the door that you were swerving from, what were they wearing?
They were wearing a black T-shirt. And wearing a red dress, as far as I can remember. And the baby, I can't remember what the baby was dressed as.
So you had a lot of concentration on the person coming out of the car that opened the door?
I did, yes. Good question.
At that time, you weren't seeing where you were driving?
I was watching very carefully where I was going. Travis. Sorry.
Okay,
Michael, I've got to move on. Sorry. Simon.
Okay, let's go with where exactly did the bike cause damage to your car?
To my right side, front side. Pretty much the right corner of the vehicle.
As in bull bar as well? Does your car have a bull
yes.
bar?
Yep, bull bar and the right fender into the right tyre.
Cool. What time do you normally wake up?
Sorry?
What time do you normally wake up?
What time do I... Sorry,
normally wake up?
Do I normally...
Wake up.
Oh, normally, or around about 5:30.
5:30. And what time did you wake up today again? On the day?
About 4 o'clock.
Okay. Do you have a daytime sleep at all?
I'm sorry?
Do you have a daytime sleep at all?
No, I'm sorry, Simon. I might just get you to slow slightly. I'm having trouble picking you up.
Do you have a daytime sleep?
Oh, daytime. Oh, yes. Yes, always have a daytime sleep. Love to have a nap.
What time is your daytime sleep?
Oh, after lunch, usually around 12:30.
So around about the time that the accident occurred?
Yeah, actually. That would be normally about right. So good question, Simon. We'll move on. Travis?
Mr. Jones, just going back to the woman in the red dress, can you just describe how exactly, again, she opened the door and came out in front of you?
Yes.
Touched on it earlier.
It was very sudden. She just simply opened the door without any warning. And then she had this baby. She hopped out, got the baby out of the car, and the next thing I know, I'm swerving to avoid them both.
So you took evasive action to avoid the woman and child?
Yes.
Yeah. So at that time, after you swerved, did you put your foot on the accelerator or the brake?
I put my foot, well, I kept accelerating, but I was only going slowly. So I didn't actually have to brake. I just swerved a bit.
Okay. So we've moved out of our lane and then we moved back into our lane when we're approaching the intersection.
There's no... Yes, Mary? Yes, objection?
It's not before the court if there were lanes. It was a very narrow street and there was cars parked on either side.
And that's a good objection because I was about to say there were no marked lanes in that street. So sometimes you can get away with it, but just remember to build one fact on another And Mary's quite right. You need to establish that fact before you can move on and ask a question about it. So good questions, though, Travis. We might.
So you
one more question. Yeah. No, just one more.
So you move from the left side of the road to the right, and then return.
Just slightly over the centre of the road. Yes. Sarah.
You said that you've had no alcoholic drinks during this time after the Anzac service, or
That's
at your
correct.
friend's place, or at the pub, correct?
That's correct.
Can I ask why?
Why?
Yes.
Oh, I haven't drunk alcohol for years. They all know that, but I always join them for a drink. It's highly significant.
I see. So we established earlier that this was normally the time when you would have a sleep,
Yes,
correct? Like
that's
your
correct.
afternoon. Okay. So it's only this day of the year that you would normally go out and then drive home via the takeaway place?
Oh, no. No, I go to this takeaway quite often. Quite often we'll go there. My wife and I'll go there for lunch sometimes, but on this occasion I didn't. I decided to get takeaway and take it home.
Can I ask where your wife was at this time? Did she not go
At
to
home.
with you to
Objection,
the service?
relevance.
Good point. Yeah. I'll allow it because it goes to where the witness was travelling, but she was at home.
Yeah, and so you were going home to see your wife?
Yes, with the takeaway. I had takeaway for
Yeah,
both of us.
so you were thinking about being at your wife while you were driving in the rain?
Yes, I was. I was thinking about getting home.
I see. And prior to the collision, where did the motorbike come from? Did it come down the road or out of an alley?
No, out of the back of a car park on the right-hand side. Sarah, we might move on, but good questions. Back to Michael Fuller.
Mr. Jones, do you agree that on the 30th of November you made a statement for the police?
Yes, I do.
And did you make that statement of your own free will?
Yes, I did.
Was there any threat, promise or inducement handed out to you by the police for you to make that statement?
Absolutely not.
And how would you describe your memory of the event?
Very good.
And would you say that the memory of the event when you made your statement was equally as good?
Yes, yeah, just as good then as it is now.
Is there any reason why you have failed to state your statement that the incident regarding the woman opening the door?
No, the police didn't ask me about that.
Why didn't you tell the police?
Oh, I'm very compliant. If they ask me a question, I'll respond with a direct answer. So every one of those statements was a direct answer to a specific question.
Did the police ask you what happened on that day?
They did.
And is there any reason why you didn't tell them then about
No.
I see.
I better move on, Michael. You're making me too uncomfortable. Good questions. Angela.
My question is, when you say that the defendant approached you,
Yes.
you had some words with him. What did you say to the defendant?
I was quite irate with him for smacking into my car. So
Okay.
I gave him peace of my mind.
All right. How often do you get your eyes checked?
Once a year or so.
Yep. And so when had you had them checked that year?
Probably earlier that year. Maybe late last year.
Okay. And the reason why you didn't obtain a medical certificate this time?
This time being
This current year. You said
because
that
I'd had a fractured skull.
Oh,
I
I'm
was
sorry
still in
about
hospital.
that question.
Yeah.
Sorry about that question then.
John, I have an objection.
Yes, Rob. Oh, sorry. Yep.
You had already stated that you did receive your medical certificate on the 1st of July the previous year.
Yes, on the 1st of July 2017, not 1st of July 2018, but yes, that's a good point. So it's good that you're listening carefully to all these things. One more question, Angela. We might move on to Michael Dickinson.
I don't have any more questions.
No, that's fine. You
I've
can
got
always
plenty of
pass.
questions, but I don't know how to say it. Yeah, I'll pass.
No, Michael.
Mr. Jones, after the accident, did you find yourself shaken?
Yes, I was. Well, yeah, I was. I was pretty upset and shaken. Yep.
Okay. And what's the size comparison between you and the defendant?
Oh, he's much bigger than I am.
Okay. You stated that you were angry after the accident. You can give as good as you get.
Yes.
What did you give him?
Sorry?
What did you give him? You said you give as good as you get. What did you give him?
I gave him a mouthful.
A mouthful.
I got a good finger wagging.
Okay.
Told him.
So on this day, it was wet.
It
You
was.
were tired.
Yeah, I was tired, yes.
You were shaky after an incident.
Yes.
And you're 86 years of age.
Yes.
In the wet.
Yep.
And you slipped and fell and hit your head.
No, I did not. But good. Good. That was very good. All right. Thank you. We might move on. Simon.
Well, if we want to keep going on those lines, were you aggressive towards the defendant?
Well, I was pointed. I probably was aggressive, yes, to be honest.
I put it to you, would the defendant push you? Could this not be of him defending himself? Or trying to keep you away as such?
Sorry,
in
Simon.
self-defense. In self-defense, you've come to him, I'm thinking better wording.
Oh, no, it wasn't self-defense. He just smacked at me.
Well, you said smack, but in your statement, it says that he pushed you.
Well, pushed, yeah, pushed with, I mean, I remember it was a closed fist, but, you know, maybe it was like a push. It was certainly to my shoulder.
Was it a push or a hit?
Oh, push or a punch, one of the two. Good.
Was it a push or a punch?
Well, I suppose maybe it was more of a
punch is an aggressive act, whereas a push may be the defendant feeling for his safety.
Yep. Maybe it was a push. Good question, Simon.
And the last question is, I put it to you, it's a narrow street, lady opened the door, you swerved over to the other side in a very narrow street,
yes,
and have actually hit the bike driver. You were tired because you're up earlier than you normally are. Could this not be an actual case?
Sorry, could this not have been a...
Could this be the actual case? Set events.
No, I'm sorry, I just didn't catch the... I'm sorry, Simon, to do this to you.
No. So let's go back. So she opened the door, you've actually swerved in a narrow street in a very large car, yes, into what would have to be the other side of the road and hit the bike.
I didn't hit the bike. The bike hit me. No doubt about that. And that's evident. I mean, yeah, the bike hit me onto the side. Good question, Simon. We might move on. Travis and then Sarah, and then we'll wrap it up. So, Travis.
Jones, you were just following on that line of questioning. You came towards that intersection. You did, after you swerved, you mentioned that you didn't brake. Moving towards that intersection.
No, I didn't. No, I didn't brake after I swerved to miss the lady, and then we had the collision. Of course, then I braked. You know, pulled into the side of the road.
Yes. So you didn't brake until after the collision.
That's correct. Yes. Because I didn't see this motorcyclist, he just came straight out into the side of my car.
Okay. Was that because you were still recovering from the swerve from earlier?
No, I'd finished the swerve. It wasn't a big swerve. I mean, if I'd seen the motorcycle, then I would have stopped. I would have braked. And of course, if the motorcycle was in front of me, I suppose I would have hit it on the front of my car, whereas it hit me on the side of my car. It came out from the side.
I'm happy for someone else.
No, that's good. Thank you.
Sorry.
All right, so last one, Sarah. Thank you, Travis.
So can I just ask, what colour is your car?
It's a gold colour.
Okay, did you have your lights on?
Yes, I did, actually. I usually drive with my lights on.
Okay, so you would say that in the wet and the rain, your car should have been visible?
Yes.
Can you think of any reason why it would not have been?
No. Well, the trees would have got in the way.
I see. And so when the motorcycle hit you, was it turning to go to the left or to the right? Do you know? Like, was it turning to go the same direction as you?
I would say slightly to the right, in the same direction as me.
I see. And so the way you were driving was such that a car pulling out from the opposite side of the road would be unable to see you if you were in your lane.
Well, I mean, there were trees and there were cars and all those things, but the rider of the motorcycle should have looked out for that and taken more caution before coming out onto the roadway.
I see. So the fact that all of these things in turn obscured your vision would not have played a part in the accident?
Yes. Yes, Mary. Basis.
She's what's the word?
Speculating that your vision was impaired.
That's right.
Yeah. All right. No, good points. And I guess there is some truth in that, Sarah, trying to establish those facts. But I hear what you're saying.
Well, he just admitted that the vision of the other person would be
was obscured, so therefore my vision might have been obscured as well. Yep, I hear what you're saying. Maybe just one last question, and then we'll do a wrap up.
Then the final question: was it likely that you're being slightly farther to the right than would normally be expected due to having swerved would have made it more likely that any other traffic could have hit you?
No, I was travelling so slowly down that street. People need to take care if they come out from a car park and have a look on what's on the road. You know, maybe I was sort of slightly over the centre of the carriageway, but it wouldn't have been much in it. All right, so thank you very much, Sarah. Thank you all. We might wrap it up at that. Now, I do hope that that's been a worthwhile exercise. I haven't conducted this previously in offering this subject, so I would be interested for your feedback, perhaps through Q&A, as to whether you think it's a worthwhile exercise. So the point of tonight's exercise is to assist those of you that haven't yet completed your first assessment to get some idea of the thinking, to clarify, to provide some indication of what happens in practice, but also to invite you now, as you read the material, your casebook, the cases, the legislation, to think about a factual scenario and ask yourself how this might fit into the circumstances. And it may not just be the factual scenario we did tonight. So it might be, for example, a news item where there's some reporting about a criminal activity. And you might ask, and you might think to yourself, well, how would I go about asking questions if I was the prosecution? What questions would I raise for the defence? So that you're starting to apply the reading and the theory in a more practical sense. So that's really what this first exercise, the assessment, is about, and what tonight's practice run was all about as well. So any questions, comments, feedback?
John?
Yes, Sarah?
Can I ask a couple of quick questions about the second assessment?
Yes, of course, that's fine.
Okay, so first question is it like how much legislative / case referencing are you expecting when some of the questions are rewrite this statement sort of thing, which would not normally be referenced? So
Now,
is there a certain amount of opinion expected, I suppose?
okay, and just to refresh my memory, the second assessment is the experiential assignment where you're looking at movies. Is that the one you're talking about?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, the one where you're looking at movies and you've got questions on the movies.
Yeah, sure.
And
So, in short, if you state a proposition, then you always need some authority to support that proposition. And we hear that in courts a lot. So someone says, this is a proposition of law, and the judge will immediately say, what's your authority for that proposition? That's code for tell me a case or give me a section of an act. So where you can, introduce something to support your argument. So if you say that a certain part of the movie includes objectionable or inadmissible material, say that, but then support it with authority. Give me a case. Now, you're not going to get any extra marks if you give me 10 cases, where in reality, it might be the one lead case that's important, and then the other 9 are simply examples of where that principle was applied in practice. So don't give me 10. Give me just the lead case, or maybe 2, and give me the section number if that's relevant. Does that answer your question, Sarah?
Does. I'm mainly asking in regards to the fact that one of the questions asks us to potentially rewrite the instructions to the jury. This is in regards to one of the 2 movies.
Mm-hmm.
Rewrite the judge's instructions to the jury as to what is required of them for standard of proof and giving a guilty verdict,
Mm-hmm.
and whether we need to reference or what classifies as reasonable doubt and such.
Yes. Yep. So do support what you say with some authority there. So, if you make a statement that, and I actually I see what you mean, that if you're addressing the jury, you're not going to give them cases. No. What you can do is work on this assumption. It's a bit like the bench books. If you look at the bench books, you'll see what the judges say to a jury in relation to certain areas of law, but in the actual bench book, legal propositions are footnote referenced with the authority for the statement. So it's the same sort of deal. So in your assessment, what you might say to the jury would then have the footnote references to support what the proposition, even though you wouldn't actually say it to the jury, you wouldn't actually mention the case. I hope that makes sense.
Yes, it does.
All right.
And the other question I had was when discussing points made by the jurors or other people in the movie that are asked in the question, you don't need us to re-quote them, and you don't mind that this structure is as a Q&A.
Yeah, no, that's fine. Just as a Q&A is fine. Just to save some words on the assessment. You don't have to repeat the question, if that's what you're saying.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Great. Thank you, Sarah.
Sorry, can I just double check?
Angela.
I'm on assessment 1 still, and I just want to double check. So I've got a whole list of questions, but it seems like just a list of questions. Do you want me to say, and my line of reasoning is, and this is why I'm asking these questions?
No.
Just more questions, nothing else. No referencing, no anything.
So just to confirm, the questions that you upload to Moodle, limit them to 20, and that can be the first 20 questions that you have in mind, the last 20 questions you have in mind, something in the middle, or a smattering. I suspect in reality you'll ask many more questions than 20. And we would have seen tonight that it's 5 questions, if you're doing it properly, can go really quickly. So it's just bang, 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 move on. But that's important because what you're trying to do is have a short, snappy question with a single proposition, get your answer, move on. And examination and cross-examination quite often is about building. And you're not going to build much in 20 questions. So I don't want to see every question that you propose to ask. And you may have different flow chart. People have different flow charts. If I get this answer, it'll go this way. But I hope that answers your question, Angela. So
yeah, and you're not asking for rationale or anything behind the question?
No, that's fine. So in this first assessment, it's really pure practice. You don't have to worry about any theory or provide me with other extra information. So thank you.
John.
Yes, Anthony.
Okay, when it comes to layperson oral evidence in regards to opinion, okay, what am I trying to ask here? At what kind of level of experience could it be expected that somebody could give it an opinion? So, for instance, if somebody did had a role of employment where it would go into that area, would their level of expertise be good enough to give evidence of it with their opinion?
Look, and this is a really grey area because, and we had a really good objection, and I forget who it was, who objected to something on the basis it was opinion, and it was, I think it was to do with the question of aggression tonight. So in reality, questions about opinion are asked all the time, and they're let go through to the keeper, to use that analogy. So, for example, it's very common for someone to say, and how tall would you say this person was? Now, theoretically, as defence or prosecutor, you could get objection, that's opinion. And it is, it's just your opinion about how tall it is. But it's kind of wrapped up in the whole common experience that we have, so we let that sort of stuff go. But if it becomes technical, if it has a bearing on the mindset of a jury, then you might start to intervene. So Marcus reminds us of the truck driver giving expert evidence through the occupation. Forget the case. Yes, I'll remember it in a sec. Wheel, I think. Wheel and bottom. So yes, it just depends on the level of expertise, and there's no specific cutoff. I know that's a very vague answer, Anthony, but I hope you understand.
Yeah, no, that's fine. That sort of answers the question.
Okay, great. Thank you. Any other questions, comments? Just as a quick...
I've got more an observation than anything, but in this exercise today, the lady swerving, I mean, as far as the prosecution's concerned, that was sort of a jump out of the blue. Something that in normal cases we'd be aware of that, I would assume, after proofing the witness. And the same with the provocation. Whereas that seems to me that it really throws a lot of targets at the defence, and I'm not really sure how you can talk him out of that one.
And it's difficult. And you can expect in the exercise that I can say that every time I do the witness exercise, it's different, and you just don't know what you're going to get. So there's a lot of thinking on your feet, but when you're prosecution, just remember your main task is to draw out the material facts and to identify the main key points, which, as Anthony, we discussed, you may need to get them back on track, but you need to improvise as well. So it'll happen. And Sarah's already had her exercise, so she knows what it's like.
John, do we have to dress up and stand up as if we're in court?
No, you don't. And I'm not going to deduct any marks if you turn up in a T-shirt. And conversely, you won't get any extra marks if you're in a suit and tie. So, yeah. So, no, you don't have to stand up. And there won't be the formalities. You don't have to announce appearances or anything. What I'll do for your exercise is lead you in a very similar way that I did tonight. So just to set the scene, settle you down, and then there'll be that point where the judge turns to you and says, yes, Madam Prosecutor, or yes, counsel for the defence, or whatever it is.
John?
Yes, Anthony.
Okay, I keep going back to opinion, but the thing is, if as a prosecutor, if your witness starts to give their opinion, you would obviously
stop them. Cut them off. Yep, cut them off straight away.
Do you remind them that we don't want their opinion?
You can, but sometimes what you do is just cut them off the first time. They get the idea. If it happens again, then you might be a little more firm and more directive. No, not your opinion, just after what you heard, what you saw, what you smelt, what you touched.
Yep.
You know, that type of idea. As prosecutor, you have to be a little strict sometimes. So, thank you.
Okay, great. Cheers.
All right. Now, can I just ask one quick favour? Sorry it's been a while for tonight, but if you found this exercise worthwhile, could you say yes? If you thought, no, it's not really worthwhile, just a quick no, just so I can get a quick gauge.
Definitely yes.
Oh, okay. Oh, well, definitely yes. Well, thank you very much. Everyone has answered. Everyone said yes.
I just can't chat, so I can't reply.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Sarah. So, but you found it okay? All right, good.
It's
All
just
right.
that we have a class before, so I was 10 minutes late, so I would have liked to be part of prosecution, but I did not get that opportunity.
Sorry. No,
So
I understand.
Yeah.
John, can I ask a question before we go?
Mm-hmm.
Is the examination and cross-examination, from your experience, different in a civil proceedings than it is in a criminal trial? Because I haven't been involved in a civil case before.
That's a good question. I've never actually thought about that. Possibly, yeah, possibly. I mean, if you've got a jury trial, you know, even then it might be different style of questioning to one where you're dealing with, you know, a judge or a magistrate only. But no, actually, I'd have to think about that one. So I guess because I'm unsure, I'd say no. Probably for me, it's the same basic idea. And we write our questions down, so don't think that we just stand up there off the cuff. A lot of it's preparation. So for every day you're in court, you do at least a day of prep, and you write your questions out. You don't always stick to it. You don't stick to the script, but yeah, that's a good point. All right. Thank you. Any other questions, comments? All right. Now, could I just say, if you're watching this as a recorded session, or even those that are here, if you haven't booked in, please do so quickly. And I think there's some people that just haven't booked in. So you're aware where to look. Q&A. There's a special section there that deals with booking in for the first assessment. And if you haven't booked in, please let me know the time. You'll see the available sessions and make sure you get a time that suits. If you don't complete the task by the due date, then you'll probably lose some marks for late submission, I have to say it. All right. Any questions, comments? All good? All right. Thank you very much for participating tonight. I enjoyed it, and I think you did well. In fact, you did all extremely well. That was excellent. All the best. We'll see you next week. Bye then.
Thanks, John.